Bennie Fowler, we have a legend in the building, a man who taught me how to play in the NFL. He's a New York Times best-selling author with his book, Slow Getting Up. He's a 6-year veteran of the NFL. He's a husband to one, a father to one. Nate Jackson.
Yeah.
What's up, brother?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here with you guys. What's going on?
Great to have you, my man. Great.
Hey,
to
father
have
to
you.
one and another one on the way.
Hey, we got announcements.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Got a little girl coming in August.
Dude, girl, having a daughter after having a son's the best. Daughters are the best. One, they don't pee on you like your son probably did. Did your son pee on you?
Yeah,
that happens.
Pooped on me too.
Yeah. The poop's gonna happen no matter boy or girl. But congratulations, bro.
Yeah.
How's it feel? How's it feel to be a dad after everything you've been through? A 6-year NFL career, multiple surgeries, writing a book, now becoming a speaker and an auctioneer. Like, where does being a dad?
You love bringing up surgeries.
Hey, I respect them, right? Because I don't know about y'all. We hear people, oh, I got a surgery. What do you got? Oh, I got something.
My tonsils.
Yeah. Where does being a dad fill the satisfaction in your life compared to the many things you've done?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. Definitely the hardest thing I've done. The other things you mentioned right there, those are individual pursuits. Those are selfish things. It was about me, how far I could go in my life, right? And so until when I was playing in the NFL, I was pretty much single. I mean, I had girlfriends here and there, but it was about me and my football career, what I wanted and what was going to make me successful. Yeah. When I stopped playing football, started writing, it was still about what was in my mind, what I wanted. And then when I met my wife and fell in love, I made a commitment to her, and I stopped being selfish. And the previous girlfriends that I had that I hadn't fully given myself to, I put that aside, and I became a devoted husband. And then the boy came, and then it was, of course, you double that or you triple that, right? So it's not about me anymore. It's not about what I want. For example, after this, I wanted today to go and do some work and do some, but he's got an ear infection. I got to take him to the doctor, right? So my wife's going to go to work. I'm going to go home and take the boy to the doctor because he needs it. But just the little moments with my son are so rewarding. You know what I mean? Like, you think about all the things you did on a football field or successes you've had off the field. None of them compared to just like a tender moment with your son, And so I found meaning and value in my life that I didn't have before.
I'm excited to experience that. I'm not a father yet, but recently married, but I'm excited.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
When did you get married?
It'll be 2 years in May.
Right on,
It'll be 2 years in May. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
Would love to dive into the football player Nate Jackson right now. I know we were just talking about, father and husband Nate Jackson, but we'd love to dive into the undrafted Nate Jackson.
Yeah.
We have the draft coming up in a few weeks.
Yep.
Talk to us about your draft day experience.
Yeah, so I was a D3 football player. I was a wide receiver out of Menlo College in California, 600 students at the whole school.
Wow.
And we had 100 guys on the football team, right? So like 1/6 of the school was football players. But it was about the love of the game there. A lot of us had tried to play somewhere else and come back to Menlo College because it didn't work out at a D1 at school. Or I walked on at a 1AA school at a high school, didn't get recruited at all, and I got cut. So I transferred to this D3 school just because I wanted to play, man. And I was fortunate enough to land at a school where there was a bunch of ex-NFL coaches there. I'm sorry, NFL players as coaches. Bill Walsh used to come to our games.
Wow.
Tom Rathman was our running back coach. Guy McIntyre was our O-line coach. Keith Millard was our defensive coordinator. Like, all these dudes were there who had NFL chops, right? And so I was able to show my stuff in front of – Bill Walsh was the guy who kind of got me to the next level. He was a consultant with the 49ers. And so in the lead up to the draft, I was an All-American, first-team All-American in college, and I was like a finalist, or I was Offensive Player of the Year in D3 and finalist for like the D3 Heisman type of thing. So my name was out there, but my agent was like, you could get drafted, you might not. The Niners said they might draft me in the 7th round. The Ravens liked me. So obviously day one, I wasn't worried about getting drafted, but day two, I thought I could be, so I had some folks over at the house and we were chilling. But the day dragged on, and when you don't get that call, it's like, but then I did get a call at the end of the draft. I was like, oh, it's coming. But it was the Niners, and I also got a call from the Ravens. Both of them saying, we're not going to draft you, but we want to sign you as a free agent. So as soon as that draft was over, I had a choice to make. I didn't get drafted, but I was choosing between the Ravens and my hometown team, the 49ers. I lived 20 minutes away from their facility in Santa Clara. So obviously I chose the 49ers. Drove up to the facility, parked and went inside the facility, which is where all my heroes used to work. The Lombardi trophies right there in front of me, all 5 of them. And I went upstairs and signed a free agent contract. And all the coaches were like finishing the draft, and it was over, right? And they were celebrating because it was like, so much work goes into that for them, right? And so they were just like having that release. And I had a bottle of water. They all had like beers, and they all toasted. And they're like, "Come on in here, Nate." And we all toasted like for the draft. And I toasted my water and signed my free agent contract with my $5,000 bonus.
Nice.
And I was ready to go to work.
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
You have to be one of the only undrafted players in NFL history to cheers with the people who just drafted you.
Probably the only. They need to make a statue for me for that. It was pretty cool. It was surreal.
That's cool.
Because I thought my football life was dead in the water several times.
Yeah, talk to me about that emotion, because you and I have a similar story. Got calls in the 6th and 7th round. We weren't like Ryan. We didn't get drafted early. So 6th and 7th round, I was getting
losers.
I was getting calls, and then like in real time, all right, the draft's over, and then your agent's calling you. It's like, oh, it's 15 teams and like 15 free agent offers, and it was hard.
You had 15.
Yeah, I had 15.
How'd you choose?
If I could play with Peyton Manning,
Flip a 15-sided coin.
If I could play with Peyton Manning, I could play in the NFL. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to Denver. And like Detroit offered me the most money, but Detroit wasn't good at the time. So I was like, I'm not going there.
You made the right choice, my friend.
Exactly.
When did the dream start to become a reality? Whether people are going to school or getting the job they finally want, like you did, you're with the 49ers, you know their story, Joe Montana, Notre Dame graduate, had to throw that in there. But when did it become like, whoa, this is another level of football. I've got some serious work to do as a collegiate first team All-American.
There was incremental moments of whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like the first one for me, when I transferred to Menlo College and I was playing really well, I had a really big game in front of Bill Walsh, and my head coach he's like, "Hey, Bill wants to talk to you after the game." After the game, he's like, "Bill wants to talk to you." So I dropped my helmet, I ran over to Bill, and he's like, "Hey, man, like, keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna get your shot at the next level. Like, wow. I think that you can do this." And so, it gives me chills recounting that story, because that was a moment of, okay, whoa. I can do this, right? So after that moment, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to happen. And then fast forward to, the 49ers had an open tryout for all the college seniors in the area, Cal, Stanford, San Jose State, and I got invited to go to that. So there was all the prospects in the Bay Area that were going to this 49ers tryout at the facility. And I went out on the field, and I was the best dude out there. And I'm like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can do this, right? These are the guys who are being considered for the NFL, and I'm the best dude out here. Okay. So then I get signed to the 49ers on the first day of minicamp. I go out there, and I'm lining up across from Ahmed Plummer, who was the starting corner at the time for them, and I beat him deep, and I got the ball. I'm like, whoa. So there's these moments where I realized that I belong, right? And after that one workout with the Niners, their receiver coach, George Stewart, pulled me aside, and he's like, hey, man, like, he said the same thing Bill Walsh told me, like, you can do this, man. You just got to relax a little bit, because I was like very eager. I mean, we were in shorts and I was diving for balls. I was laid out like boom.
Undrafted.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to do that.
Man, relax. You're good. You're doing good. Just chill out. I was like hyperventilating, But there was those moments where I realized I belonged. But then there was also those moments where I tried a move that worked in D3 off the line of scrimmage on a slant, and that shit didn't work. Yep. You know what I mean? The guy just stood there.
Hand in the chest.
Yeah. Okay, that's
cables.
Welcome to the league.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew the technique was something I was going to have to work on, not the belief or the talent or anything like that, or the ability to catch the football, but the technical stuff was something that in D3 football nobody really had. And so I was able to just move guys aside and go run my route. But that doesn't work in the NFL, So that was the realization. Okay, I have to perfect my craft. It's not just about going and getting the ball, like it was at the lower level.
Starstruck moment. Who was the first player? I'll never forget walking into the locker room in April. OTAs is getting ready to start, and then the receivers and quarterbacks were right next to each other, and my locker's 2 away from Peyton's. Well, Peyton had 2 lockers, but my locker's right there.
He walked in. And stuff,
He had like his golf clothes in one and like playbooks in the other. It was crazy.
Playbooks, like he had just stacks
of all the weeks before.
Yeah.
And yeah, he walks in there, and I was like,
let me refer to week 3, page 7. When
Exactly.
This guy's an encyclopedia.
And he's right there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the league now.
Yeah.
Like, what was yours?
Probably T.O., Terrell Owens, because he was a hero of mine. Like, I remember probably 3 years before I ended up on the team, I was just a fan. I was a 49er fan. I was like 19 years old. We went to this, me and my buddies got tickets to the playoff game against the Packers, which was at home in Candlestick Park. And T.O. had just kind of supplanted Jerry Rice as like the big, the best receiver on the Niners. Jerry Rice was moving on. And T.O. had that winning catch in the playoffs against the Packers where he had dropped a couple balls early and then caught that one at the end. And it was the craziest stadium experience I ever had. It went from total despair to just total elation like that. It was an improbable win. T.O. caught that ball, got hit by like 4 guys, held onto the ball, but he was a larger-than-life character, Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, I'm in the receiver room with him and, in the shower with T.O. and like in the weight room with T.O. and just like and just on the practice field too. But I learned a lot from him. He worked his ass off on the field. He slept in meetings. But on the field, he worked really, really hard. So, certain folks can sleep in meetings and certain folks can't.
1,000%.
I was one of those guys who had to stay awake.
Front row. You were a front row guy.
Yeah. But there was one other time, fast forward 3 or 4 years, I was here. It was 2005. I was making a transition to tight end. And Jerry Rice ended up on our team. And this was his last stop of his, obviously Hall of Fame career. And he would retire like halfway through training camp because his body said no more. I mean, it was hard because he was my hero growing up, and I was watching Champ Bailey just lock him down. And if Champ wanted to, he would hold him on the line of scrimmage, and Jerry couldn't move at all. And there was a couple times where and Champ would be like, "I can't do this to you, man. I'm just gonna let you run a little bit." But Jerry was just like, he was 43.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's 43-year-old men ain't supposed to play tackle football, right?
Right.
But Jerry was still doing it, and so, but I was in awe of him in the locker room. He was a hero of mine, and so I got to spend some time with him. That was pretty cool.
Ryan, what was yours? Who's your?
John Lynch. I came. Nate was there. I call him Jack Nasty. I don't know if we can get into that, but my rookie year, I remember walking into the training room from the locker room, and there's John Lynch, and this is John Lynch, and Tampa Bay, all those things. He goes, "Hey Ryan." Oh God. Oh, hey, John. And I was like, Mr. Lynch, like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't expect him to speak to me. I definitely didn't expect him to know my name.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, John Lynch knows my name. And there were a lot of guys on that team, that kind of had that kind of like, whoa, Champ Bailey, always came into the work in sweatpants. I never seen that. He was in pajamas all the time, but locking people down, But I want to double click on something you said, Nate, because it gave me as a rookie next to you a lot of like confidence in moving forward. I remember at one time, and you talked about moving to tight end. So here you are, you're in the room with Terrell Owens, you're getting told by Bill Walsh and everybody that you can do this, and then you're asked to be a tight end, which could not be, I'd imagine, for a receiver, a worse thing. Like, hey, we think you're a little more talented than a lineman.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, and I was like, man, you've been doing this a while. You're like, nah, man, I just became a tight end. And I was like, oh, if he can, like, this is the amount of learning you can do.
Yeah.
If you understand, I'm just going to go for it. But what was that process of the disappointment, the recommitment, and then the success going from wide receiver to tight end?
Yeah, it's just sink or swim, at that point, because I knew that, like we talked about, I can't fall asleep in meetings. I'm not that guy. I got to perform at a high level every single day. At practice, I got to be one of the best guys at practice every day. I got to know every position on the field. I got to play every special teams. And if you ask me to play tight end, I don't want to, but I will. My dream coming into the NFL was to catch a lot of passes, just like I was in college. I was catching like over 10 balls a game my junior and senior year. And so that's what I did best in this world. I would tell Shanahan, if you want to win the game, just throw me the ball every day. But that's not how it goes, man. You get there, and there's Rod Smith, and there's Ed McCaffrey, and there's Ashley Lilly, and there's all these guys who are making more money and are going to get the ball, right? And so it doesn't matter how many balls I catch in practice or how good I think I am. You have to do anything they ask you, and adaptability is very important. If you're not an adaptable athlete, it's just not just in sports, in life, then you're going to lose out on some opportunities, right?
What do you think stops people from adapting, from choosing to adapt?
They have a rigid vision of what they thought they were going to be, and they're unable to amend that. But look, I use this metaphor all the time. You jump on a ship in like Cape Cod or something and you go over to Europe. It feels like a straight line, but you look at it from space, it's a bunch of zigzags. You're always course correcting, right? So you're always adjusting to what's being thrown at you. For me, came into the league as a big receiver. In college at Cal Poly, the coach that cut me thought I should be a tight end as well at the very end of my tryout there. So this had been a conversation that had happened for me in the past. And Mike Shanahan didn't couch it the way you did. He wasn't like, hey, man, you're kind of pretty much just a lineman. We want to move you down there. He's like, well, because he had
big skill. We prefer big skill.
Yeah, big skill.
Big skill.
Well, I love when you guys get in the pat and go lines and like to catch the ball and stuff like that.
We're the most talented athletes. We ain't got to get into that. We all know we agree.
But Shannon Sharp had a lot of success. He was a receiver in college and got transitioned to tight end. Jeb Putsier, Byron Chamberlain. Shanahan had done that with a lot of guys. Big receivers, turn them into tight ends.
So there's trust there.
Yeah, and it creates an advantage in the passing game. And if you become a serviceable blocker, then he really liked to use the 2 tight end packages because it puts defenses in a bind. You put your nickel package out there and we'll run. You keep your bigs out there and we'll throw on you because we have these guys who have multiple skill sets. So that's the way he phrased it to me. He called me and I was driving around and I got a call from Shanahan. He's like, we're thinking about moving you to tight end. We think you'll get on the field more and have an opportunity to catch more passes. And I'm like, all right, cool, But at the time, I had my previous season had ended with a broken tibia, so that was pretty much healed. But still, you're healing that, and then I'm putting on 25 pounds that off season, and then going out there and becoming a tight end. Yeah. And minicamp was great because you're just running routes and just and I was like catching everything. I was like, this is awesome. Tight end's easy, man. But then training camp comes around, put the pads on. And it was really brutal. I was getting my ass kicked every day. It was bad. And it was really hard to go, into the meeting room and watch that on film after I'm getting my ass kicked like that and have, Rico and whoever else just rip me to shreds.
Wow, Rico.
Yeah. Oh, and he just loved
Rico.
He just loved it. He just loved teeing off on me, the guy who was a receiver last year. I don't know any of this wide combo that you guys were doing, but now I got to do it and power blocking and all this stuff. So the technical stuff, like I talked about before, that I had to learn as a receiver was like 2 times that as a tight end. So it took me a couple years. 2005 and 2006 were tough for me. Yeah. Just trying to stay afloat with that stuff. But my advantage in the passing game kind of helped me out, and then my adaptability as a special teams player.
Talk to me a little bit about what you just said in terms of training camp being hard in the transition.
Yeah.
And then also watching it on film and watching yourself lose, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand in terms of professional sports.
Yeah.
Is that your flaws are being seen by the entire team.
Oh yeah.
And it is one of the most humiliating and embarrassing things in life, but it also helps you to perform at a high level. But talk to me about that transition, and then you're questioning yourself, like, can I do this?
Oh yeah. Thick skin, man. It just you really develop thick skin, and I think people need to normalize having thicker skin in life. And if every business operated like that, every business would be a lot more successful.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's being held to the same standard. You're being critiqued in front of your peers, so everyone knows where everyone stands.
Right.
If you are not doing well, we all know that. Yep. And if you keep getting put out there when you keep sucking and everyone else is playing better than you, then everyone looks at the boss like, what are you doing? We see what's happening. You know what I'm saying? And so it develops, I think, a sense of and a standard of excellence that permeates through the locker room where everyone knows that if you're here, you belong here because you're improving on your mistakes or your weaknesses, and you're not repeating your mistakes over and over. The guys who repeat the same mistakes, get yelled at for the same thing every day, they're not going to stick around.
Right.
And if they do, that reflects poorly on the coach, right? So it develops a sense of pride in what you're doing and a sense of excellence throughout the locker room. But for me personally, like I was saying, man, it was very humbling because when you have a bad practice and a bad play, and when you're sitting in there watching it when that play's about to come up.
Right. Ooh,
and your heart just starts beating like, and then like, hey, depending on the coach who's running the meeting, they can drag that thing out.
Oh, man, keep rewinding it. Keep rewinding it.
I had a teammate, you were there. You don't remember the play because you didn't see it. This guy had the worst play in practice like you've ever seen. He went up to the coach before and said, I'll give you $1,000 if you don't show the end of it. And sure enough, the coach is up there right before he gets dumped over and tossed. He stops and he starts talking to the team. $1,000. I'm like, damn, I should have thought of this.
Wow. So he actually paid him?
He paid him, and the coach didn't show the ugliness.
But did it really benefit the player? Because
Yeah.
part of like improving is that fear of that moment, you know, in the meeting room. Like that kind of makes you better because it's like, I don't want to have that again.
But what made you overcome that fear? Like that was a real challenge for me coming to the NFL because I'd been better than everybody else in college. I was better than everybody else in high school.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is fear now. I'm going to have fear for years. Like, what is this? What did you do with the fear? What did you do with that embarrassment?
I was just so motivated, man. I just believed in my football journey that much that I enjoyed being coached. I enjoyed improving and the learning process. The competition, I love that. I love flipping the switch every day and getting to have that moment to get better, you know, to go put my hand in the dirt and try to block this dude again. Like, how am I going to use my tools to my advantage here? I know I'm undersized. I know he's got the technique on me. I know he's bigger. He's been doing this longer. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to do it with quickness. I'm going to hit him first. I'm going to get him under the chin. I'm going to turn myself into a missile. I'm going to run my feet, and I'm going to make this block. And you have to see improvements to be encouraged, right? And I would see those improvements. And hard work, man, you do improve. And that's the cool thing about human beings. You work at something, you get better at it. And it was hard for me not to be inspired by seeing myself improve.
I don't think we've ever talked about it on this podcast here, but there is something about the NFL. If you are able to stay in it, you improve light speeds within a week. I mean, it was insane. When I went undrafted and kept coming out of Michigan State, and then I went to OTAs for the 12 weeks we were there, and I would tape some of the practice film on my phone and then send it back to my receiver coach, and he could not believe that I was the same player. And I was just like, this is the league. Like, you get with it or like you'll be embarrassed. It's the way you can improve is nuts.
Well, you got such a great example. You got guys who are ahead of you who are veterans who know how to do it. You're watching every step you take, every little movement of your muscles. You're watching that on film, and you're getting to self-critique in a way you never did in college. And it's also the pressure cooker of all the eyes on you, and you see guys who are coming and going, and guys are getting cut, and it's just like, man, for me, I had the best example when I first got there. Rod Smith was a veteran, and his locker was right next to mine. And so I was not a natural route runner per se. I was more of an instinctual player who would go get the ball. My ball skills were my best attribute, right? But Rod really instilled in me the patience of route running and understanding what you were doing with your body. Like, you may think that you're setting him up here, but you're really not. You're actually already leaning that way. Like, you have to really believe that lie you're trying to tell him with every ounce of every fiber of your being, from your head to your toe. You have to sell that I'm actually going this way when you're not.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going that way. So what part of my body is tipping that off, right? And so Rod really got me to think about how skilled the DBs were in detecting that lie in my body and making sure I was beating them mentally before I try to beat them physically.
Did he teach you the trick of where you're running a route and you're breaking right to look left? So you don't tip it off and your body won't tip it off. So like you're running the route, you're getting ready to break right on a dig.
Yeah.
And Rod would say, make sure your eyes go left.
Yeah.
And then your body won't tip it off. It was great. It's something he taught me my rookie year.
Yeah. Yeah, the head fake, and then your shoulders and your hips, and head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. You'll learn that song eventually. But
yeah, it'll be stuck in your head when you go to bed.
But those DBs are just so good, and it comes back to the technical stuff.
Yeah.
You have to really commit to the way that you do that. But it's also it's hard on your body to torque your body like that.
Yeah.
To run full speed this way, stick your foot in the ground without leaning, because the human body wants to lean where it's going. Right? And the more you don't do that stuff, the more torque it puts on your body, and the more it kind of like I had a lot of hamstring and groin issues late in my career, partially because I put on the weight to play tight end, and I was still running routes like I knew how to run them. And so I was just having, I had a groin tear off the bone, and then the hamstring tear off the bone the next year. So I had actually hamstring reattachment surgery to reattach it to the pelvis there. Yeah.
Now, finally made the transition. You're playing your best ball. You're a complete blocker. You're catching passes. Your career's over.
Yeah.
Now what?
Ain't that about it? You know what?
Yeah. Like,
that's the hard part of football that people don't understand. Most people don't have that Peyton Manning exit where they like, oh, my body, I won a Super Bowl and I'm almost 40 and my body just can't do it anymore. Well, my skills were still ascending. I had only been a tight end for 4 years. I didn't even play Pop Warner football. And my first 2 years of high school, I was a running back and then a quarterback. I didn't really become a receiver until varsity. And then I only played 3 years of college football. So I was still learning the game. And I was finally, like you said, I felt like I was in my bag with my skill set. My body, I finally kind of figured out my size as a tight end and what worked for me. I was about 235, still undersized, but it gave me, the flexibility and things to do what I needed to do out there. And then I got cut, and then I never found my way back, man. And so it's hard to move on when you have that skill set that you've been working so hard at, and you know that there's a lot of football left in you and a lot of money left on the table too.
Illustrate that for us, though, that it's over now. Like,
well, that was
what does that mean? Did you go back to your apartment? Did you pack right away? Did you move?
I got cut when Josh McDaniels came in.
You saved yourself. You saved yourself.
Yeah. Don't even get us started on that.
Yeah, no,
I don't know him, but
yes, you do. You know bad coaches. Yeah. Go ahead.
There are bad coaches, and then there's Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, evil.
Like he makes football players hate the gift they were given. Mm-hmm. He makes you hate coming to work today.
Literally what one of his players from the Raiders said to me this last year. He made me hate the gift I have and made me hate football.
That's a sin, man. And he's committed multiple sins against the game we love. Hopefully he never gets a job in the NFL again. So Shanahan got fired, and then Josh McDaniels got hired a month later, and then I was actually still in the facility rehabbing that hamstring that had popped off. But it was feeling pretty good. But I went up and introduced myself to Joshy boy. And it was so weird because he was like moved into Shanahan's old office, and all the old Broncos, like Shanahan stuff was off the walls, and like the secretary desk, which was usually Shanahan's longtime secretary, was like Josh McDaniels' buddy, like some dude with like cargo shorts or something. I'm like, what is going on here? And I went in and introduced myself to Josh, and I just tried to, because we were almost the same age. He was like 33 and I was like 29 at that time. And there was nothing. Like I tried to have a normal conversation with him. He just didn't laugh at any of my jokes or anything, man. And I'm like, okay, I might be in trouble. And I was. I got cut about a month later. My hamstring was still pretty trash. I wanted to get back in the league, and it was a desperate time for sure. I mean, my agent was telling me there's going to be other teams interested, stay in shape. My hamstring was bad enough where I decided that HGH was going to fix me. I had never taken steroids or HGH or anything like that, but I was pretty desperate to fix my body, and I thought that was going to be the answer. So I acquired some HGH and started shooting it in my stomach.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went to San Diego, and I was training with a trainer to get back in. And he was really, really good, but there was only so much he could do because my hamstring was literally still unattached. It never really healed.
They didn't reattach it with surgery, or
that would be still to come. So all spring and summer I'm working out in San Diego, living with my financial advisor, who I didn't know at the time, but had all of our money in a Ponzi scheme. That would go away relatively soon after that. No. But at the time, I thought he was my friend, and I was staying rent-free in his mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, okay? But I was one-track mind. I was trying to get back in the league, and I was shooting HGH, so I had my own secret. And so I was like pretty blind to what was going on, and he wasn't home much and all that. So I had 3 workouts that summer. I had one in New Orleans, actually with Sean Payton and Drew Brees.
Nice.
I had one in Philly during the middle of training camp, and then I had one in Cleveland. Didn't get signed in Philly. The Cleveland one, they said they liked me. They sent me home. I went to Cabo. I'm like, this. They called me my second day in Cabo. They're like, we found a spot for you. Come on back. I'm like, are you kidding me?
This is training camp.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, God.
No chance.
So I go back, and then I fly to Cleveland, and I'm putting on, a uniform in Cleveland in the middle of training camp. I was there for a week, and I got cut. It was Mangini was the head coach there, and he was, basically the job. Exactly. Yeah. Like he would do the stupid ever, especially coming from Shanahan, who was all class, all system, all integrity. And then Mangini's up there just like calling guys up in the middle of the meeting to have them stand up and recite the mantras that are written up around the facility. And if you don't get it exactly right, he just cusses you out and tells you to sit down. We would watch film of warm-ups, and he would be critiquing everyone's warm-up effort.
Please.
Effort.
I taught them young cats how to do warm-ups properly.
That's how you know he's not a good coach.
Exactly.
Right. Tom Nalen taught me. Tom Nalen, don't touch the line. He said, don't ever touch that line.
Exactly. And it was a complete opposite. And they were all trying to do the Belichick thing, right? They're all trying to be
Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly. And predictably, it failed, right? So
the Belichick thing doesn't actually work for people because people actually think Bill Belichick is that mean. When I got signed by the Patriots, Bill Belichick and I had lunch, and he told me why he signed me, and he was telling jokes, and we had like a great conversation. So like, what Josh McDaniels and these other coaches who want to be like Bill Belichick, that shit doesn't work because he's actually not like that.
Right.
He just doesn't like the media. Like,
Right.
That's it.
Josh couldn't be himself. Well, he just couldn't connect with people, right?
Yeah.
He just couldn't, and like he wouldn't go out to lunch with you. Josh McDaniels wouldn't go out to lunch and crack jokes with you like Bill was able to, right? Yeah. So anyway, I had the week in Cleveland. I got cut, and that's after that was when I had the New Orleans workout. They had a injury to a tight end right before the season started. Didn't get that one either, and that's when I signed with a UFL, Las Vegas Locomotives. Okay. And that's where it all ended.
You're holding on
to
the
get
dream.
Pretty sad and depressed. Go into the deserts of Casa Grande, Arizona, and stay at the Holiday Inn with a bunch of dudes who are trying to keep the dream alive. And there's like freaking scorpions running across your feet, and like we were staying like the facility was some like old sports complex. I mean the washer and dryer, like the dryer never worked. Like our clothes would be wet hanging in the locker. Like they had a pile of face masks and pads on the ground. We had to like sift through them to get ours. And guys are fighting over the face mask they want. And some guys don't have thigh pads. They got knee pads on the thigh pads. And like
I did that on purpose though.
they had just laid the sod out there in the middle of the desert, and there was like a swarm of mosquitoes around every practice. And Jim Fossil was the head coach, and we were kicking the shit out of each other. It was full double days, full padded. And I'm like, what am I doing? You know, but 2 weeks into that, my hamstring finally did explode like for good. And that was it for me. You know, that I came back to Colorado, had surgery at Dr. Philippon up in Vail, and he reattached that thing. And that was the end of my career. But delusional as I was, guys, I thought, okay, I fixed the problem. Now now someone's going to want me. So I went back to San Diego, started training a little more. But it was like a slow burn realization. Even my agent stopped returning my calls. Not stopped, but it was like it would take a while, and I'm like, I couldn't even get a hold of him. And so it took me over a year from the time I got cut by the Broncos to really realize that it was over. So most guys, they don't have the moment at the podium when it's like, it's been a great career, guys, and I'm walking off into the sunset. Most guys get cut, and then they're kind of thinking, hey, is this still going to work out? Talking to their agent, and then eventually you realize you got to move on.
It's tough. I think that transition is tough.
What was yours like?
I had a similar situation to you. I tore my rotator cuff and labrum in New Orleans on Monday Night Football and got surgery. Dr. Andrews did it, and then had an opportunity to sign with Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. It was great. Went there for OTAs. It was 6 or 7 weeks or whatever when they signed me. And then got to training camp. I got cut on my best day of training camp. It was third day.
Of course. Yeah.
Killing it.
Like, that was a good practice. You're out of here.
Grim Reaper's waiting outside of the meeting room because I'm one of the last guys out.
Oh, damn.
And just but like I wasn't upset.
Yeah.
Like John Lynch is, the person who, you're welcome to the NFL moment. John was just like, hey, man, like right now we just got a lot of people in the room. You're 30. It's like, but they called me back for the playoffs and like, hey, we'll stay. They stayed in touch with me throughout the entire season. So like,
and you got to play in the playoffs?
No,
oh.
they didn't need me because Debo was fine.
Yeah,
this is at the end of 2021, but I was.
Oh, you're fresh out, man.
Yeah. So, but I actually wasn't upset. What when I knew it was over is that I went to go work out for the Lions, and Dan Campbell brought me in there because I had played with Dan the year before in New Orleans. And the GM and the receiver coach didn't want to sign me. And I was like, oh, this is a wrap. Like, you guys have no wins right now. Yeah. And you don't want to sign me? Like, I'm done playing.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk a little football and then, to wrap things up. Like, when you, with all your experience, when you watched what happened with the Broncos this year, what did you see?
Just a team that doesn't know how to win together yet, and I think that they made some improvements this year based on the previous years. You need stability. You need stability with coaches. You need stability with the veterans in the locker room to show an example for the young guys. When I got here, we never won a Super Bowl when I was here, but we were competitive. What were you, 2008 or 2007?
I was drafted in 2007, but played in 2008. That's when we just missed the playoffs because of that Bills game.
Jeez.
Like the Bills, I think, had 3 wins that year.
Yeah.
And we lost in the end zone. And like that was Shanahan's job.
Yeah.
Like, if we win that game, we go to the playoffs. He's still the coach. And I really think that team, we win 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Jay Cutler,
Brandon Marshall, Tony Scheffler, Elvis
Tony
Dumerville,
Scheffler.
Champ was there.
Yeah, man. We had a squad, man.
A really good offensive line.
Yeah. We literally gave up, I think on the year we gave up 12 sacks on the year, and 3 of them were on.
Yeah.
We were legit.
It was a defense that was really bad that year.
Yeah.
It was
overpaid on some guys that took the money. But
but when I got here in 2003, Jake Plummer was at the helm, and we made the playoffs 3 straight years. We went to the AFC Championship.
You knew what it was like to win. You knew what it took. You knew
and
the
expectation, like the Super Bowls were still in that locker room. All those guys who had won those back-to-backs, Tommy Nalen and Shannon Sharp and Rod and Ed and all those, a lot of those guys were still there, and the coaching staff. So the standard of excellence was there. And so for a young player, it was very easy to come in and understand what I had to do on a daily basis. And then you did it, and then it resulted in a win on Sunday. And you're like, okay, so do we just do this again and just keep doing the same thing? And for the Broncos the last 5 or 6 years, they haven't had that feeling. They've had a new coach every couple years, not a lot of veteran leadership that knows how to win or has familiarity with that. And so they never have the routine that results in a win compounding into the next week with a win and the next week with a win. I think Sean Payton's going to get it right. I do think that. I think because he understands that routine. He has that mind for detail. He can compartmentalize all the things that are important, because it's not just about coming up with a good game plan. And that was what Mike Shanahan was good at. He was a master organizer. It was about the whole operation, right? And so I think Sean Payton has a grasp of that. It's just going to take a couple of years to get that moving, I think.
He's going to lay that foundation. I mean, it was a well-dialed machine when I went to go play for him in New Orleans. First conversation he ever told me, because Drew came out here to work out with Emmanuel, because Emmanuel had just signed, and I worked out, and Drew was like, I'm going to get you signed, because it's during COVID.
Nice.
And Sean, I signed with New Orleans, and Sean's like, hey, you've been a B-plus player on special teams. You need to be an A player to make this team, and this is how you fit into the organization. This is how you fit into a Super Bowl winning team. And I was like, oh, my God, this is great for an undrafted player.
Right.
You know what you have to do every day to be on this team, to make this team, and this is where we're going.
And he's got a plan for everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And he only operates from a place of strength. If you run slants really well, I'm gonna make sure the formations put you in different situations for you to run that route.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the Broncos.
Yeah, me too.
And Sean.
But the city needs the Broncos to be good.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
Enough already.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, let's get on the jugs machine real quick before we let you go. It's a little bit of jugs.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Number one thing incoming rookies need to know to be successful in the NFL.
What we talked about before, perseverance, hard work, like every day.
What does that look like? Talk about the tangibles. You say perseverance, hard work. A lot of guys are going to be like, oh, I persevered through college.
Okay. Taking care of your body, getting your playbook. The more you know, the better off you're going to be. Soak up the leadership and the veterans, what they're doing. Follow someone who knows what they're doing and do that. Find the guy who knows who's the most true professional in that room, and just do what he does. And just be adaptable. Do anything you're asked to do. Of course, special teams is very important for a young player. Not everybody's going to be the first round draft pick. And it's funny, like, we're talking about the draft. It's all about who they're going to draft first and all that. But, like, that's not the heartbeat of the locker room. You guys know that. Yeah. It's not the number one pick. It's the dudes who are hungry and are trying to make it. That's the heartbeat of every locker room. And so be one of those guys. Be hungry, and follow the leader, basically.
Top 3 things you learned from Mike Shanahan.
Study, be prepared, handle yourself with class, and be accountable, I would say. Because the football stuff, everyone knows how to work hard and stuff like that. But Shanahan had a system that I think was based on that stuff.
How important for leaders is it to be honest with those they're leading? We've had good coaches and bad coaches, and we all know great coaches are honest. But I feel like a lot of coaches, a lot of leaders, they don't want to be honest. They're afraid to be honest. They're afraid to let you know. What is so important for leaders about being honest that translates to production and success to the team?
Yeah, if they're not honest, it's at their own peril. If you want your team to be successful, you have to be honest with everybody about where they stand, because if not, you're not getting the best out of them. If I tell you good job when it's not a good job, then our team is suffering. You become a weak link in the chain, and the chain's going to break. Right? If you care about the success of this business, this team, or whatever it is, you have to be honest with everyone, and you have to treat everyone the same, in my opinion, with the same standard. If you don't do that, the rest of the team's going to fail, and you're going to get fired. You're going to get fired as the boss if you don't create that standard and hold everybody to it.
You're a New York Times bestseller. You're a writer. You love to write. Where did you discover that passion? How have you made sure that you stay true to that passion and that part of yourself?
Yeah, so my parents were both school teachers, and I was always good at writing. I'd never really tried that hard in school. Unfortunately, I was always I did in elementary school and in middle school until I got a bunch of friends, and then social life became sort of important to me as well. And it wasn't until college that I really started writing. Like, I started writing for my school newspaper, and I really enjoyed it. I had a column, and I could write about whatever I wanted, whatever issue was going on at the school or anything that I thought was important. And that really, I started to kind of blossom internally from that. And I always kept a journal as well. And when I was 19 years old, a really good friend of mine committed suicide. And my mom, you know, in the aftermath, a couple of days after that, came into my room with a journal, with a blank journal. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, what do I do with this? She's like, just write. It doesn't matter what you write. Just it'll help, you know? And that's when I started really writing for me and kind of manifesting what was inside of me. And it became a self-affirmation of sorts. Like, it started out dealing with pain and loss, but I would go to my journal or to the word when I needed to convince myself of something that I believed in. And so I write to make it so. I've written my own story before it ever happened. You know, before I was making it to the NFL, I was writing about how I could do it. And then it happened. I'm like, okay, well, I already wrote it. I'm not surprised. I already told this story. Right. And so writing for me has always been sort of a prophecy and has helped me kind of collect my thoughts and believe in myself. And so whenever something happens and I feel like writing about it, it means I can have the last say. I can create the moral to the story. You know, I can distill all the stuff down that happened and find out what mattered in that story to me. And it's just become a part of kind of my heartbeat. And so I really enjoy writing.
One piece of financial advice for all NFL players based on your experience.
That's a good one. So, you know, don't trust the guy who comes to you and asks you to trust him with your money. You find that person. You seek him out. Seek him or her out. Maybe it's a family friend. Maybe you do your research. But the person who gets presented to you,
it's not the guy.
Is not the person. Especially if he's, you know, putting down black cards and you know, is young like you, and he thinks he's cool, and he goes to all the NBA All-Star game, and he goes to all the fights, and he like goes and gets bottle service, and he wears Italian suits. That's not the guy.
He's spending your money.
Yes, and you think you're living rent free, but you're not. In addition to that, I would say also just don't buy the house. Just don't buy it yet. You know, don't spend your money now. You're not going to really need it now. People give you free shit when you play in the NFL.
It's crazy.
Like, and also the volatility of the profession. You could be gone in 2 years or 3 years. I mean, you're going to be a non-football player for a lot longer than you're a football player. So save your money for when you really need it.
He is Nate Jackson, New York Times best-selling author, father, husband, one hell of a veteran of the NFL in his 6-year career, and clearly still not done writing his story. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.